Hello, everyone. This is Natural Resource Management. Our team members consist of Isabel Alacron, presenting Colombia Protecting Biodiversity and Making Peace with Nature, Advancing the Implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Rachel Baldwin, presenting Enhancing Resilience, Wetland Preservation in Stafford Township, New Jersey. Kelby Beck, presenting Organizations Investing and Protecting Biodiversity through the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. Beonli Mbukun, presenting Corporate Accountability for Environmental Damages, Shell's Oil Exploitation and its Impact on Niger Delta. Daniel Paulillo, presenting Native Landscaping as a Means to Biodiversity Preservation, and Rafael Rodriguez, presenting Preservation of the New Jersey Meadowlands, Potential Strategies for Wetland Conservation and Ecosystem Restoration.
Colombia, protecting biodiversity and making peace with nature, advancing the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This is part of Team 2 by Isabel Alarcon. Introduction. Sustainability relies on three key pillars: environmental, economic, and social, guided by effective governance. The global loss of biodiversity is one of the most significant environmental crises of the 21st century. Colombia, recognized for its immense biodiversity, ranks as the second most biodiverse country in the world, boasting a rich variety of ecosystems from tropical rainforests to high-altitude perennials. In fact, per kilometer, the country is the most biodiverse. This case study will focus on this primary question. How can Colombia leverage national policies, incorporate engagement and financial mechanisms to protect its biodiversity under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework? Colombia implemented the Kunming Biodiversity Framework with a particular focus on how the country can mobilize corporate support for biodiversity through reporting requirements, incentives, and innovative financial tools like Green Bond. When we share a common goal, the pursuit of a healthier and more sustainable future for future generations becomes achievable. Colombia attempts to address it. Colombia's government has implemented several policies and legal frameworks aimed at biodiversity conservation. Through international biodiversity goals outlined at the Kunming Global Biodiversity Framework, which includes ambitious targets for reducing biodiversity loss, restoring ecosystems, and integrating biodiversity into economic sectors. At the corporate level, Colombia has to engage private companies by encouraging them to pursue in biodiversity conservation through reporting requirements and offering them financial incentives for companies adapting biodiversity-friendly practices. So why did Colombia decide to undertake this issue? Colombia's decision to prioritize biodiversity conservation stems from the understanding that its natural resources are integral to the country's economic well-being, cultural well-being, and social sustainability. The Colombian government recognizes that protecting biodiversity is essential for maintaining the ecological balance, which is vital for the country's agriculture, tourism, local communities who depend on natural resources for their livelihood. Colombia has undertaken some challenges, and the ways they've been able to do it is through implementing national policies and legal frameworks like the Colombian National Biodiversity Policy, the Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service Law. Both policies support biodiversity protection. Through corporate incentives, the Colombian Green Tax. This is eligible for green projects, which encompasses a portfolio aimed at climate change mitigation and adaptation, including clean transportation, water management, and renewable energy incentives. Through green bonds. In fact, in 2021, Colombia issued its first green bond, successfully raising $511 million towards these efforts, and through collaboration with international organizations. Of course, it faces challenges, barriers such as political differences, illegal logging and wildlife trafficking, deforestation, corporate compliance, and financial constraints. However, it has been able to achieve successes with forest conservation, corporate engagement, and international collaboration, for example, with the United Nations Environmental Programming and the World Bank. Conclusion. The case study of Colombia's biodiversity conservation efforts under the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework highlights the importance of a coordinated multi-stakeholder approach. Through national policies, corporate engagement, and financial mechanisms such as green bonds, Colombia has made strides in addressing its biodiversity issues. The Colombian national government remains resolute in its commitment to advancing the United Nations Biodiversity Framework on climate change. Acknowledged as one of the most ambitious initiatives in Latin America and the Caribbean, the lessons learned from Colombia's experience demonstrate that a combination of strong legal framework, financial innovation, and active corporate participation is essential for active biodiversity protection. Colombia is positioned to contribute to global biodiversity conservation while addressing its own environmental challenges, while keeping in mind that Bloomberg Finance forecasts that investments in renewable energy will reach an impressive $55 trillion by 2030. Thank you. And here are some wonderful pictures of some of the nicest cities that we have here in Colombia with amazing landscape.
Hello, my name is Rachel Baldwin, and I will be presenting today Enhancing Resilience, Wetland Preservation in Stafford Township, New Jersey. So, introduction. What is a wetland? Many of you watching may already know, but it's more than just a name. It consists of water that's close to or above the soil that is present at or near the surface for all or most of the year. It can consist of marshes, swamps, bogs, and estuaries, but predominantly is freshwater, saltwater, or a mixture of both, known as brackish water. The characteristics include three main features, which is water, unique soil types, and vegetation adapted to wet conditions. And lastly, it's predominantly found in transitional zones from terrestrial to aquatic ecosystems. Now, why is wetland so important? Well, it offers flood protection from excessive rainfall, storm surge mitigation from those once in 10 year storms, water quality improvement by filtering pollutant sediments and nutrients from runoff. It provides habitats for wildlife, such as plants, fish, and birds, and is one of the top ecosystems to provide carbon sequestration. So my project area is located in Stafford Township. It is located in southern Ocean County. It's outside of LBI, also known as the gateway to LBI. It consists of dense inland urbanization, bayfront properties, heavy pinelands presence, and wetlands along the southeast portion of the municipality. So Mud City is the core focus of this project, but technically it's the wetlands adjacent to it. Mud City is a neighborhood in Stafford Township. It consists of 150 residential homes and 16 businesses and experiences flooding on the daily, hence the name Mud City. And it is adjacent to federally preserved wetlands known as Edwin B. Forsyth Refuge. So how is Stafford Township planning for resilience, reducing flooding, and mitigating property damage? One way is, you probably guessed it, the wetland. So I first want to take it a few years back. It's not as simple as going in and restoring a wetland. It takes a lot of planning. So back in 2019, the township went ahead and started doing sewer rehab in their more prominent bayfront communities. After 3 to 4 of these, it led to improved water quality, according to the NJDEP, where several of the places went from approved to conditionally approved to, from a conditionally approved to approved, and henceforth. The Stafford Township is known as one of the first municipalities to achieve this, so it's something that they're very proud of. That led to a bathymetric survey of the whole lagoon system and some of the waterways in the bay. And Stafford Township went out and did township-wide permits to the NJDEP and the USACE. So after they acquired their permits and their bathymetric survey, they went and partnered with NJDEP along with several engineering firms and created these two studies, the Resilient Stafford Action Plan and the Mud City Plan in 2023. This helped to isolate and identify Mud City further as a potential candidate to climate resilience and ecological innovations. So 2024 was predominantly spent applying for grants. However, one of those grants has led to the Mud City Ecological Restoration Study in 2025, which will consist of bathymetric, topographic, and LiDAR survey, geotechnical investigation, engineering designs and project plans, NJDEP and USACE permitting. Some of that was already done, but more to more to come. Public outreach and stakeholder engagement. And lastly, project management and grant support. This study will potentially lead to the current project, Edwin P. Forsyth Refuge. So a lot of the issues seen are sediment ebbing. So as you can see here, there's waters coming in and then taking a lot of the sediment out within the wetlands. Again, here the coastline is receding. There's a lot of historical mosquito ditching. I pointed out a few examples, but really you can see it throughout this whole image. One option to restore A and C was thin layer disposition, which is a technique where a thin layer of sediment is spread over degraded wetlands. Its purpose is to restore and combat subsidence, erosion, and sea level rise. And the material used is normally a beneficial dredge material. So a living shoreline is another option for the B issue that we previously saw. It is a natural approach to shoreline stabilization that uses organic materials to protect against erosion while enhancing the natural habitat. And it also manages coastal erosion, restores shoreline ecosystems, and improves resilience to flooding and storms. Now, to bundle it all up and put a bow on it, the sewer rehab that Stafford Township conducted led to better water quality. The better water quality led to beneficial reused dredge materials. The potential option for dredge materials is a wetlands restoration, and so Stafford saw a need for resiliency action to protect Mud City residents and properties. They went out to permit, plan, and conduct in-depth studies to set everything in motion, and the objective is to restore the wetland adjacent to Mud City to provide climate change resiliency. Now, the anticipated outcomes, if you recall from the benefits of a wetland, it is going to be to provide flood protection, storm surge mitigation, water quality improvement, habitats for wildlife, carbon sequestration, and economic benefits. Throughout this entire 5 years previously, every single step of the way has provided many economic benefits to the residents, which is why they continuously keep going with these projects. So thank you. That's all I have for you today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on the email provided, and I will pass it off to the next team member.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kelby Beck, and I will be talking about organization investing and protecting in biodiversity through the Montreal Biodiversity Framework. What is the Montreal Biodiversity Framework? It is an international agreement at the 15th Conference of Parties through the UN to the Convention on Biological Diversity, focused on halting, reversing biodiversity loss by 2030, utilizing a set of goals and targets focused on protecting and restoring nature. Below, you can see a link to access the actual document of the Montreal Biodiversity Framework, and it will take you through the set of goals and the specific targets that they're looking to focus on by 2030. It's even been in conversations about adapting that for 2050. So what we're focused on is Goal D and Target 19. So Goal D within the Montreal framework is the framework is focused on financial and scientific cooperation, securing the equitable accessibility for all parties, such as for communities in biodiversity, funding for conservation. Goal D is also focused on closing the biodiversity financial gap of 700 billion per year, which is a pretty large gap to fill. And Target 19 is more specific. In Target 19 is talking about the framework focuses on progressiveness of increasing the level of financial resources. This is looking towards leveraging private finance, blended finance, encouraging the private sector to invest in biodiversity. So who is the private and who is the blended contributors? So I have 5 companies listed over here, and of course there's many more companies, but these are 5 companies that I specifically target because they deal with land protection and forest restoration. And there's some familiar ones that you can see from Coca-Cola to Johnson and Johnson. Organizations contributing to biodiversity and conservation. So it's an interesting idea in the sense of most of the time we think of state and federal investing in biodiversity or, land preservation, such as like parks. You have the national park system, but why not companies? So here we're looking at Pacific company GSK, which is a biofarm company focused on uniting technology and talent to get ahead of diseases together. Focuses are on infectious disease, HIV, immunology, respiratory, and oncology. GSK invests in biodiversity with addressing their supply chain. They invest in the protection and restoration of land use across and beyond the valued supply chain. Other contributes to carbon removal and water basin restoration. And below you can see a link to some of their incentives that they're working on between sustainability and environmental projects. The one listed below is specifically about land. It's pretty interesting. So why organizations should contribute to funding towards biodiversity? So organizations play one of the largest roles in the supply chain system that contributes to concerns of destroying habitats, overexploit species, and impact on land. Control and reversing the effect of the silent crisis of biodiversity loss. Protecting biodiversity addresses risk mitigation as corporations rely on natural resources and ecosystem services to operate. Biodiversity is a market demand. It's high. People seek it out. It assists in the contribution of the 700 billion per year biodiversity financial gap, or contributing in innovation practices that reduce the cost of environmental restoration caused by companies contributing to biodiversity destruction. Some concerns about how this is going to happen, though, with organizations contributing to biodiversity is questions around, will organizations appropriately financially plan for biodiversity? Concerns of greenwashing and implementation of sustainable practices. And organizations not only need to contribute financially, but also need to address practices within their supply chains. Example of this is around the debate of carbon credits and lack of regulation or short-termism. Overall, the evidence shows that it's beneficial for both entities, as biodiversity conservation is a protective factor with a high market demand. So I have some references listed here, and they all tie back to why, companies should be cooperating and investing in biodiversity, as well as you can access further the Canadian Montreal Biodiversity Framework here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Bayon Ibokon and my topic is Corporate Accountability for Environmental Damages, a case study of shares oil exploitation in Niger Delta. Now, the Niger Delta is an important part of Nigeria because it finances our economy and because of the oil exploitation that is happening in the region. And over the years, the oil exploitation has led to the environment of the region being degraded. And Royal Dutch Shell has been one of the multinational oil companies that exploit oil in the region prior independence of the country to to what we have now, because it has about 35% of investment in the oil sector, in the Nigeria oil sector. Now, why this study? Why do we care? Royal Dutch Shell has been avoiding responsibility, the environmental responsibility it owes to the people of Niger Delta due to the degradation that comes along with the oil exploitation over the years. And recently, it has been in the news that Royal Dutch Shell want to divest its onshore investment and sell its SPDC shares. SPDC is the share petroleum development company, is a subsidiary of Royal Dutch Shell that operates in Nigeria. So what will happen to the remediation and the environmental judgment that the Royal Dutch Shell owes the people of Niger Delta? That's that's the reason for this study. Now we have to look at firstly we have to look at the corporate structure and the accountability. The way RDS and SPDC is structured. Now RDS is the parent and SPDC is the subsidiary. They are different legal separate entities, even though they have a kind of parent and daughter relationship. Now RDC provides the strategic oversight and the policy that guides SPDC operation, but SPD is allowed to operate on its own without with little supervision from RDS. So in a way, we cannot hold RDS accountable for SPDC atrocities in the Niger Delta. Now let's look at the environmental impact of SPDC oil exploration in Niger Delta over the years. The two-way, the chief two-way SPDC is polluting and the Niger Delta environment is still oil spilling and gas flaring, and this has impacted the water bodies in the region. It has impacted land and vegetation, and it has altered the livelihood of these people because mostly the people in Niger Delta are basically fishermen and farmers, but due to the contamination of land and the water, they have to look for another source of income. And also people have left the region looking for greener pasture because of the contamination in the land, and also it has a health risk implication for those there. And the grievances, um, these are generated grievances in the region because the people felt marginalized, and some of them have taken to arms, and it has caused violence, clash with the military, the rise of militancy, and oil theft in the region. Now, let's focus on the conflict between Niger Delta people and Shell. Now, there was a movement there, the survival of the Ogoni people in the Niger Delta, and their leader, Ken we were during a protest. He was arrested, and it led to the execution in 1995, and that has led to further militancy in the region, and this kind of shape the way people in the region look at Shell because they felt like Shell has mobilized Nigerian military to make sure that its operation, its oil exploiting operation, runs smoothly in the region. And if we look at those that took the Shell to court in the people from Niger Delta that took Shell to court, if we look at those that took Shell to court in Nigeria, that's a domestic legal case, they see that few of them won and the remuneration was low compared to international cases whereby Royal Dutch Shell was held accountable. Now, it's not easy to try Royal Dutch Shell, but in the few cases that the indigenes won, the remuneration has been high, and the Royal Dutch Shell has been held accountable for what they have done. That the ruling in 2021 in the Netherlands court. Was the first time whereby the Royal Dutch Shell was called out for what he has done through his subsidiary in the Niger Delta region. Now, let's look at the Shell's remediation attempts and effort to resolve the conflict. Now, the United Nations Environmental Program recommend a 1 billion remediation plan, but Shell has offered little to this amount of money that will be used for remediation, and he has delegated his remediation duty to the Nigeria agency, which has been, because of corruption and a lot of politics involved, have not done much concerning the remediation in the region. Now, Royal Dutch Shell is trying to sell its onshore investment. Now, what will happen to the remediation plan, the accountability, the environmental accountability that Shell owes the people of Niger Delta? Because why are they selling their onshore investment and not selling their offshore shares? Because recently, Shell has invested more billions of dollars into their offshore assets. Now they are selling it to an indigenous company. Now, indigenous company will not be held liable for what has been done, the environmental degradation, the loss of lives, the remuneration needed in the region, and also the cases in court, both domestic cases and international cases. What will happen to those cases if Shell sell its onshore investment? In conclusion, it's a normal thing. It has been a custom of multinational oil companies to set up their organization in a way that their subsidiaries are different from them, and they can easily avoid responsibility of what their subsidiaries are doing, as in the case of Royal Dutch Shell. Now, before Royal Dutch Shell is allowed to sell its investment, there's a need to, in a way, settle its environmental justice that he owes the people of Niger Delta. Thank you. And these are my references. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Polillo, and my topic is native landscaping as a means to biodiversity preservation. Biodiversity is quite possibly our greatest natural resource. It's necessary to sustain humans. It's necessary to sustain all life on Earth. Unfortunately, we are living in the sixth great extinction, a period of time where baseline extinction rates are far above what we would expect from normal natural selection and evolution. This project deals extensively with the idea of native and exotic species and invasive species. Exotic species are those that are derived from a foreign ecosystem, and invasive species are those exotics that have the possibility or the capacity to do harm to native species, either through direct competition, through predation, or some other indirect interaction. A lot of the invasives that we think of are animals like the emerald ash borer or the zebra mussel. We might even think of some plants like kudzu, but it turns out that we employ many exotics, many invasive exotics like Japanese barberry in our normal residential landscaping. And this leads to a number of problems. And the question I'm trying to address is, can private property owners, regular homeowners, play a role in preserving biodiversity? I chose this case because of the research of Dr. Doug Tallamy. He is an entomologist from the University of Delaware. He's published a number of journal articles, as well as a number of books intended for non-scientific audiences. And I also had the chance to interview him in preparation for this presentation. His overriding hypothesis is that there is too little public open space remaining to preserve biodiversity in the United States and elsewhere. And so instead, we now have to begin to rely on private property to do the job that we once expected national parks to do. So Dr. Tallamy and a co-founder started Homegrown National Park, the idea that it is at home that we have to do the things that we once relied on national parks to do. Dr. Tallamy moved into a new home in Pennsylvania, and when he moved in, he realized there was no insects, and being an entomologist, that bothered him quite a bit. He tried to figure out why that was the case, and he came to the conclusion that it was because his home was populated mostly by exotic species that his native insects could not eat. Because there was no insects, there was no birds. Because there was no birds, there was no other animals, and so we move up the food chain. His co-founder, Michelle Affandari, is a licensing and marketing entrepreneur who approached Dr. Tallamy basically and said, hey, I have the know-how to do the public-facing part of this. Why don't we get together and start a nonprofit to try to address this problem? And Dr. Tallamy handling the science-facing side of it. And so that nonprofit is called Homegrown National Park. Homegrown National Park is basically focused on doing education and outreach to the public, to homeowners, to people who don't know a lot about invasive species and don't have scientific backgrounds. And the main feature of their website is the Get on the Map web interface, where homeowners can locate their property on a map and document how much of their land they have planted with native species. And this is a way that the website and the organization is sort of totaling up how much land has been devoted to this over time. The big challenges that the organization faces is firstly the public perception of lawns. People expect lawns and landscaping in general to look a certain way. There's a belief that if you have a certain type of landscaping and if you keep a nice green big lawn, that you are a good homeowner. But in reality, that's not ecologically true. So overcoming that status quo is a challenge, and it is being overcome gradually. And the other issue is money, having enough money to develop the website, the tools, the social media, and other factors like documentaries and other outreach tools. Is it working? Can this have the results that we hope that we will have? And the answer seems to be yes. Firstly, science is telling us that even properties as small as an individual house property can hold enough native landscaping to influence positively the biodiversity of the area. And in addition to that, we know the public is responding as they are being reached. In 4 years of Homegrown National Park, 120,000 acres have been set aside by 30,000 households in the United States to be used for native landscaping and for restoring native ecosystems. So there is a great turnaround that's beginning to take place. Here are some of my references. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Rafael Rodriguez and I'm excited to share my research on the preservation of the New Jersey Meadowlands. This area represents one of the largest remaining wetlands in the northeastern United States. Historically, the meadowlands were seen as a wasteland due to pollution, landfills, and industrial development. However, in recent years, this ecosystem has become a conservation priority because of the critical services that it provides. From water filtration and flood control to supporting a wide variety of plants and animals, these wetlands are invaluable. My research focuses on understanding the key strategies being used to protect and restore this region, as well as the challenges and successes of those efforts. This case study also demonstrates how urban ecosystems like the meadowlands can coexist with sustainable development. So my research centers on a key question: what are the most effective strategies for preserving and restoring the New Jersey Meadowlands, and how successful have these efforts been? To explore this, I looked at the ecological importance of the meadowlands and the serious threats they face. These wetlands provide essential services such as improving water quality, mitigating floods, and supporting biodiversity, yet they remain vulnerable to urban expansion, industrial pollution, and climate change impacts, like rising sea levels and, more frequently, the severe storms that we've been having in New Jersey. To address these challenges, various organizations, which include the Meadowlands Environmental Research Institute, the Hackensack Riverkeeper, and the New Jersey Sports and Expedition Authority, are currently working together to preserve and restore this vital ecosystem. My research highlights their efforts with a particular focus on balancing urban growth with urban environmental sustainability. So, diving into the strategies that are being used to conserve and restore the meadowlands, first, sediment removal is a major focus. Decades of industrial activity have polluted the waterways, and removing contaminated sediments is critical for improving the water quality and restoring aquatic habitats. Another key effort is the restoration of native vegetation. Planting native species strengthens the wetlands ecosystem by stabilizing soil, reducing erosion, and providing habitats for wildlife. The meadowlands also play a critical role in flood mitigation. These wetlands act as a natural buffer during severe storms, absorbing excess water and protecting surrounding communities from flooding. Community engagement has also been a driving force in this project. Organizations like the Hackensack Riverkeeper involve local residents in cleanup efforts and educational programs, fostering a sense of stewardship for the wetlands. And finally, regulatory frameworks established by the New Jersey Sports and Expedition Authority ensure that urban development is planned with environmental sustainability in mind. This balance of conservation and growth is essential to the long-term health of the meadowlands. To wrap this up, the preservation of the meadowlands is a powerful example of how urban ecosystems can be restored and protected. And this research offers several important lessons. First, the successful conservation requires collaboration. Government agencies, environmental organizations, and local communities must all work together to address the complex challenges that are facing ecosystems such as the meadowlands. Second is that balancing development with preservation is critical. Strong regulatory frameworks and policies are necessary to ensure that growth does not come at the expense of a natural resource. Finally, community engagement is vital. People who understand and value the environment around them are more likely to take action to protect it. The Meadowlands kind of demonstrates that urban ecosystems can not only survive but thrive when conservation is something that is prioritized, and these efforts also show how wetlands can strengthen climate resilience by reducing flood risk and supporting biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions about the presentations, please feel free to reach out to our team members. And have a wonderful day.